Hi guys, thanks for joining me on my channel again today. My name's Peter and this is Thailand Bound. Right, I don't really have too much of an introduction today because this video was actually recorded probably about 6 weeks ago. I'm now in Thailand, hopefully, by the time you're listening to this, but this has been recorded in the UK. So as I say, not really too much of an introduction because it'll be dated anyway. I want to keep the stories going while I'm away in Thailand. They're quite a lot of work. I didn't want to sit in a hotel room in Bangkok producing these stories, so I've pre-prepared them. So I hope you're going to enjoy these today. There's 3 today. The first one is very, very interesting because it comes from a girl. She's a UK national, Asian actually, but she has a girlfriend in Thailand and she's been very, very frank in her story. So let's get straight on with the story and here we go, first story.
สวัสดีค่ะ
This story is called The Good, the Bad and the Scary. I'm an Asian female raised in the UK who has British nationality. I decided to spend the summer vacation with my Thai girlfriend. She was on summer break from university and I had a lot of leave still left over from work. We decided to do a big road trip around the south of Thailand. This involved going from Bangkok to her hometown in the south of the country, where we would then drive to Phuket, Koh Yao Yai and Koh Samet. When I landed in May, I had booked a test and go package. Annoyingly, the rules changed again, but this time I was able to get a refund for my test and I decided to keep my hotel room as it was just for one night and it was in a good area of Sukhumvit Road, Soi 13. My girlfriend and I had decided to just have fun that night in the area and I had convinced her to go to Nana Plaza and Hooters. Hooters was an easy sell because of the cheesy, delightful food and the cheerleader style dance that they performed, as she used to be a cheerleader in high school. She met me at the airport and I was so happy to hold her in my arms again. She looked as beautiful as ever and was wearing a pretty little summer dress, perfectly complemented her legs and full chest. It took a lot to control myself and the taxi ride to the hotel felt like an eternity. As soon as we checked in and got to the room, it looked very different from the pictures. Outdated, shall we say, but my brain was between my legs at that time, and after a full day of traveling, I just wanted to shower so I could get sweaty again, if you know what I mean. It seemed like she had a similar thought because before I even turned on the water, she had joined me in the shower for some very deep cleaning. The one highlight of the room was that it had a very large mirrored window between the bedroom and the bathroom. It seems the new generation of Thai women are not that shy. Once comfortable and behind closed doors, everything changes. She pulled out our not so little helper from the bag and positioned herself so she had a good view of us both in the mirror, and then, as you would have thought, a marathon sessions of aerobics followed. Perks of being girls, we don't need any recovery time. As the evening drew closer, we realised we hadn't ate anything. Another shower and off we went to our favourite Thai barbecue place. Where else but Thailand could you have an all-you-can-eat barbecue of meat and seafood for the price of a Domino's pizza back home? We had worked up an appetite and for a tiny girl, she sure could eat. When we got back to the hotel, I decided to relax on the bed while she changed into something more sexy. It was only then that I noticed the bed sheets. The pillow and the duvet inside has some black marks. First I thought, oh great, I got makeup on my bed from my eyeliner, but then I realised I wasn't on that side of the bed. I also remembered we had showered before we rolled around earlier. I called my girlfriend and she inspected the sheets and then cringed as she said it looked like mould or rotting damp. Now usually I would get annoyed and have a strop with the staff, but I calmed down and I realised this is Thailand and shouting doesn't get you anywhere. We called reception and asked for housekeeping to come and change the sheets, explaining what had happened. We were told that the housekeeping is away for the night. I said, okay, just send some sheets up, I can change the bed myself. They said they couldn't do that. I said, well, then you can change your room as we can't sleep here. We were told they were fully booked. At this point, I was annoyed as it was past 10 p.m. I told her to speak with the manager and have them call me to sort this out as it's not acceptable. We decided to get a massage up the road to kill time until the call. It was nearing 12 o'clock midnight and there was no call, so I just booked another hotel down the road near Asok. packed my stuff and told them we are checking out, expressing our disappointment and how we expect to hear from the management soon. The other hotel was amazing and cheaper. My frustration at not getting to have fun in Nana Plaza went away as a new hotel made my girlfriend very excited, and she decided to put on a little private dance show for me. In the morning we got our things and checked into the other pre-booked hotel, the Mandarin, good location and good price. The following evening we were getting ready for dinner, and it dawned on me, in the rush to leave the hotel in Soi 13, or as we later began to call it, the Pump and Go Hotel, as it was honestly something out of a low budget adult movie, I had left my Prada designer shoes when we left in the middle of the night. Thankfully, my girlfriend was on the ball and called up explaining we hadn't heard from management that my shoes are still in the room and we needed them before we flew out of Bangkok the next day. I don't know what else she said as she was speaking in Thai, but in the morning we got a call saying they have my shoes and an apology from management offering a free night's stay. Now, as fun as it was doing aerobics in that hotel room, I would never take her back there again. The shower looked like a breeding ground for athlete's foot. The rest of the trip was wonderful. We had a lovely time in Phuket, choosing to stay in the DoubleTree in Patong for convenience. The drive there was great. A 6-hour trip was completed in 4 hours with a break as it was a Sunday and there wasn't much traffic or police. I really enjoyed putting my foot down in the Honda Civic Type R we had rented. The place was busy, which was nice, but it was packed with Indians and Arabs with the occasional Australians. I was caught off guard when my girlfriend asked me why Indians have weird eyes. I asked her why she asked that and said it is very racist. And it basically is, but she is Asian, so I guess it was okay to ask. She pulled her eyelids and with a serious face asked me, us Asians have eyes like this, but those Asians have eyes like this. She then stretched her eyes to make them bigger, mimicking a shocked-like expression. I couldn't control my laughter. I explained that Indians, South Asians in general, like it or not, like to stare a lot. It is a rude habit, but they will stare you down and sometimes undress you with their eyes. Bear in mind, we were two girls openly hugging and being affectionate with each other. Aside from staring and having very loud conversations in the middle of the night by the pool, they were not that bad. I would avoid staying around too many again. I'm not racist as I am of South Asian descent, just being honest. One event did traumatise me, and if I can warn others from the horrors that I witnessed, it will make it somewhat worth it. I went to a ping pong show on Bangla Road. It was called Hollywood something, but let me tell you, there was nothing Hollywood about it. First of all, the charge for the show was 1,200 baht per person, which included one drink. Okay, fair enough, not too bad as they had a few performances lined up. One part of the show consisted of a live adult aerobic session. Neither performer was substantial in appearance or performance. They actually came round the crowd asking for tips. In my head, I was thinking, yes, I have a few tips on acting and positions for you. Then came the ping pong element. The dancing was rigid. The show consisted of a poor little bar girl, fish, ping pongs and darts. At one point, one girl smoked from her nether regions. Her face matched those parts. Both looked like ashtrays who had seen better days. I wanted to leave, but my girlfriend made me sit for 2 hours. She didn't initially enjoy the show, but then she found amusement in my discomfort. In between the horror, I also had my face mushed between some very well-made mountains on the prettiest performer there, which turned out to be a ladyboy. The night was a failure. I was mortified with what I had saw. I was bumped into buying the ladyboy and her friend drinks at a ridiculous price, and I lost my electronic cigarette at some point. To make it worse, as we left, we met an awful monsoon rainstorm, which resulted in my walking back to the hotel in my socks to protect my expensive shoes under a poncho. After laughing about the incident and inspecting our stuff, still in shock about what we saw, we had a shower and a change and went to get some ice cream. I still have nightmares about this. Guys, it's not worth it. Despite that night, I will always think of Phuket very fondly as we had a very fancy and romantic dinner to celebrate her good exam results from university with a visit to Black Ginger. The food was amazing And my God, did she look amazing in her dress. And not to be smug, but I turned many a heads too that night. It was nice to see my girlfriend jealous, especially when hotel staff and guests gave me compliments. I was usually always in shorts and a t-shirt due to the heat during the day. When we got back that night, she revealed what was under the dress, and I felt like the luckiest girl in the world, because this stunning girl and all her tight, firm and smooth glory was all for me. The night then turned into a tasteful but lustful photo shoot. These photos and videos keep me warm at night. The vacation was going great. Off we went to the next location. She had booked a 2-night stay at a 5-star resort in Koh Yao Yai, which I thought was sweet but not necessary. We had a room with a sea view up in the hills with our own private saltwater pool. We really enjoyed that pool and the privacy that came with it. It was amazing. We set up the camera on cinematic just to capture some cute couple shots of each other to look back on, but one thing led to another, and then another 8 times by the time the sun had set. We were exhausted. We never left the hotel room and ended up ordering room service. After some refueling, she returned to the room. I assumed she was tired. Oh no, the perks of dating a younger lover. We enjoyed the rest of the time on the island, but she did mention her lower back was painful and maybe she slept funny or was tired. We didn't think much of it, and away we went to her hometown, where we met her family, had dinner and headed off to Koh Samui in the morning with her best friend. I like her best friend. We often joke if we had a child she would grow up to look like her because of her features. I was extremely grateful she came with us because the fun stopped that night. I had booked an Airbnb, a beautiful villa with a private pool and a stunning view of the island. Getting up the hill was tricky in the Civic, but not impossible. The hill was extremely steep. I could see why the host mentioned that some taxis may not get up the hill. Also, as the girls pointed out to me, Thais are very superstitious of the hills, and we did not see any spirit houses on our way up. We didn't mind too much as we were excited at having fun, and our host was helpful. He showed us around the property. All rooms were accessible but one which was locked. He explained a friend is using it as storage, so we didn't think much of it. My girlfriend was very tired, so she had a nap. The nap is never a nap with the Thais. It was 3 hours. So I left her to it and I decided to help her friend take photos. The friend is an actual model, nothing high profile, but she has done some work for some small fashion brands and cafes. A cat then appeared, very skinny, small but cute, really friendly. When we went into the property, it kept meowing loud. It was very, very annoying. We assumed it wanted to come inside as it was a wild cat. We decided against it out of respect for the owner and wanted to avoid fleas or rashes. My girlfriend woke up. We went out for dinner. Her mood was off a little because I basically called her lazy and how it annoys me that she sleeps so much. Actually, she was not annoyed at me and she was not being lazy. She had a temperature. She was tired. When we got back, she was shivering and vomiting. We thought maybe she got food poisoning, but then I realised we shared some dishes and we were fine. That night was awful for her. I was carrying her from the bed to the bathroom. I had to change her clothes twice and wash her because she was sweating so much and vomiting. I pleaded with her to let me take her to the doctor or hospital, but she declined and said wait until the morning. I did not sleep a wink that night. I was so afraid. I had never seen anyone shake so much. I spoke with her friend and we agreed if she doesn't get better, we will go first thing in the morning. Morning came, she was still sweating, shivering with a fever and vomiting. I picked her up and got her into the car. Thankfully, she only weighs around 47 kgs and I can squat double that and lift 40 kgs without too much hassle. I'm not a She-Hulk woman. I just like to lift weights to keep everything tight. I gave her a bag to vomit in and we lowered her seat. I have never driven so fast yet carefully in my life. I parked up at Accident and Emergency at the Bangkok hospital and they took her in by wheelchair. I parked up, ran in asking where they had taken her. Thankfully, as it was a tourist area, some of the staff understood English. Her friend was already providing information regarding my girlfriend's insurance as she called her family. I ended up dropping to the floor in exhaustion and crying quietly. I was so scared. I didn't know what was happening to her. They started running the tests and we were asked to wait. Her fever when she was brought in was 41. They tested her for COVID and she was negative. They ran a few more tests, but her friend told me to go and speak to the staff because apparently they would give my Thai girlfriend better treatment if she was with a Farang. This turned out to be true. Suddenly, they were way more attentive. I had to do a quick ATK test and I was allowed to stay overnight with her. I did manage to rush back and get clothes and bits and bobs for us before I did the test and left the friend at the Airbnb, as there was no need for her to wait about. They gave me her pain relief and some IV fluids as she was dehydrated. I spent the whole night watching over her. When the doctor returned in the morning with the blood results, they confirmed that she had some kind of infection but needed her to provide a urine and stool sample to help narrow down what kind it might be. I then remembered the saltwater pool. Our vigorous 2-day session in the pool, her pain in the kidneys. Then I recalled that night when I was taking her to the bathroom. Her urine was darker and stronger. I assumed it was due to dehydration. No, I expressed my concerns to the doctor, who thankfully spoke great English, and we concluded that she had a kidney infection. After some more tests, it was confirmed she must stay for another few nights and was given medicine. Thankfully, most of it was covered by her insurance, but we did have to pay about 40,000 baht on top of that. They came for the payment and they wanted some signatures. I explained that we will come down and pay or call, as she is in the shower right now and the documents were in Thai, so I wasn't going to sign them. She agreed to come back later. We got everything ready to leave, but I started to leave the ward to go make the payment. I was stopped and asked where I was going, and I explained to make the payment. They told me not to worry and that they will send someone up. I thanked them for the offer but explained I don't know who to go to and we want to leave soon, but they insisted I wait in the private room. It then dawned on me that they were worried I would run away and not pay the bill. I laughed and said in broken Thai, "No, I will not run away," and I showed my wallet. I will pay. They then came to the room in 10 minutes with a card machine ready for the remaining payment. I paid there and then, and she didn't have her cards, but later tried to send money over to me, which I sent back, which offended her, and she told me to take it or else. When we got back to the house, we talked about how creepy the house was and how I was glad I didn't spend too many nights there. We all felt the place was creepy. To add to the creep factor, there were a lot of dead bugs outside the house and one room of the house. The locked storage door. We also found it odd that the cat refused to enter the house. I caved in and offered to let the cat in, as on the last night it was still meowing every time we would go inside, and when we were outside on the patio she was happy and calm. I assumed it was clingy and hungry, but even after being fed she kept crying. It was only when leaving we discussed how we felt unpleasant presence in the house. The girls felt that my girlfriend was perhaps weak from UTI and then became weaker because of the negative energy in the house. If I am honest, I just think it was a creepy house because it was in the woods and the girls and my own imagination got to us. I still think it was crazy, passionate 2-day session in the saltwater pool, but ghosts sound so much better when her family asked what happened, as opposed to, well, I boomed her into the hospital bed. The only real horror story was that ping pong show. So there you go, guys. Quite an interesting story. We seem to be getting quite a lot of longer stories in now, which is quite good, but they're a bit of a marathon for me to read out. You can tell it was written by a woman, can't you? It's just different. I can't put my finger on it. Is it a little bit more romantic, a little bit more descriptive? I'm not sure, but it's kind of... When I was reading through it, I thought, yeah, you can just tell it's sent by a female and not a guy. All right, let's jump straight into our next story. I have listened to many of your stories and they have entertained me greatly. So my turn to submit. I remember a couple of weeks ago, after reading out a story where someone failed to stand up for themselves, you made the comment that you couldn't understand this. This reminded me of 2 stories where I have stood my ground and the results hopefully are worthy of you reading out. One is a fair length and the other is short and sweet. First story occurred in Manila back in the late 1980s. I know the Philippines isn't Thailand, but I think you will agree the content falls in line with the stories you read out. It also has a good twist at the end of the story. I was staying in a good hotel which was conveniently located next door to a row of go-go bars. I had met a very beautiful lady in one of these bars and eventually she ended up back in my room. During the ritual joint shower, my lady friend stated that she needed to get something out of her bag in the bedroom. She left the bathroom and went into the bedroom. Now, although I was not a seasoned Asia traveller, this was not my first rodeo, so I was not a novice. I was reasonably certain of what was now happening in the bedroom. I quietly opened the bathroom door and then peeked around the corner, and sure enough, my lady friend with her back to me had my wallet in one hand and a bunch of peso notes in the other. I sneaked up, snatched my wallet and the money from her hands and then asked her to leave. I handed over 500 pesos. I think this amount is right. It was a long time ago and my memory isn't the best. 500 pesos was the standard fee for a short time, and although we hadn't done anything by this stage, she was entitled to a fee. The original understanding was for the whole night and 1500 pesos. Now the fun, my lady friend then lost it, claiming that the notes she had in her hand was her money, not mine, and she wanted them back. I told her my wallet was in her hands and it was my money. Take the 500 pesos, get dressed and leave. Her next action was to rip the 500 pesos up into little pieces and throw them in my face, then grab the duty-free bottle of scotch and threaten to smash the hotel TV. I informed her it wasn't my TV and she could go ahead if she wanted to. I then told her she needs to leave. Thankfully, the TV remained intact. She continued to rant and rave and scream that she wanted her money back. I had had enough and picked her up and deposited her outside of the room in the hotel hallway naked. Then I gathered her clothes and belongings and opened the door and gave them to her. All the time she was screaming, demanding her money. I need to point out I never harmed her. In fact, I was extra careful to be gentle in my handling of her. The loud screams and ranting continued outside of my door to the extent that I had no option but to ring down to reception and request the duty manager visit my room as I had a problem with a lady. My lady friend was now fully dressed. All three then entered my room and we discussed what had transpired. The lady continued claiming the money that I snatched from her was hers and she wanted it back. I luckily had a receipt from the hotel money exchange when I exchanged US dollars into pesos earlier that evening. By showing the manager my wallet and the receipt, the manager and the security officer agreed that the money in question must be mine. Now, I'm not a complete idiot, so I asked the manager what needed to be done to settle this. He asked the lady and she said 1,000 pesos. I agreed and removed 500 pesos from my wallet and then picked up all the small bits of paper that she'd ripped up earlier and handed them to her. She went off on one again. I said she ripped it up, so it's hers. Manager and security officer smiled. The security officer escorted her out of the hotel. The duty manager, when asked, thought it would be a bad idea if I left the hotel to go back to the bars. He suggested I stay in for the rest of the night, which I did. Now the twist, and I think it's a kicker. When I was sorting my clothes the next morning, in the back pocket of my jeans, I found a sizable sum of pesos. The lady was telling the truth. The pesos I snatched from her hand must have been hers. Did I just rip off a poor working lady? But why in the first place did she have her money in her hand and why my wallet in the other hand? Am I really an idiot? The only logical reason I can come up with is back in those days, counterfeit money was a big problem in the Philippines. I think I may have caught her swapping my good notes for her counterfeit ones. Now, mind you, I still had those notes that I took from her and I was never challenged for spending counterfeit notes. If anyone can come up with a more plausible reason, I would very much like to hear it. Oh, what happened to the bottle of scotch? The next morning, I tracked down the duty manager and gave it to him. He was very diplomatic and professional the night before. Now my second story. It's short and sweet, but again as a result for standing up to someone. This time, a Thai taxi driver. Yeah, I know, I can hear just about every Thailand visitor nodding their heads in disapproval. On a stopover in Bangkok, I jumped into a taxi and said to the driver, "Can you take me to Pat Pong, please?" He asked me the routine questions and came back with the routine replies. Pat Pong no good, he knows where better ladies are and cheaper. I told him I haven't been to Pat Pong before and I've heard good stories and that's where I want to go. Now I should say here, this was the late 1990s. The taxi driver started to argue and said he is taking me to another place. I told him if he doesn't take me where I wanted, then I won't pay him. We both got a little forceful, with me winning out in the end, or so I thought. Now I'm an Australian, and if I support any English Premier League soccer team, I did say I'm Australian, so it's soccer. It is Liverpool, and only because of Australian Craig Johnson. When I was a young soccer player, he was a hero playing for Liverpool. Now he becomes my hero again, twofold hero. This is why the hero for the second time. As I got out of the taxi and started walking down the street into where all the bars are, I noticed Liverpool playing a game on the TV of a street bar. As it was only early, I pulled up a chair and started watching, meeting this British guy who was sitting next to me, and we got to talking in between watching the game. Now, this British guy was now living in Sydney, Australia, so he may have built up some good character from living there. He noticed I was looking over at a nightclub where a stream of ladies were walking into it. He then asked me a question that threw me some. He asked me if I was gay, and I said no. He then said he was, and I said that I'd picked up on that, but it doesn't bother me. Yes, you are correct. The taxi driver got back at me. He had dropped me off in the gay area of Patpong. The nightclub was a gay club, and I was checking out ladyboys. My new best friend advised me that if I walk about 100 meters up the street without stopping, and I would get to where I was originally intending to spend my night. Why does this make Craig Johnson the hero again? If I didn't stop to watch that Liverpool game, I wouldn't have met the British guy, and I would probably have ventured into that nightclub. I can pretty much guarantee that if I had gone into the nightclub, I wouldn't be sitting here typing out the story for you to tell the world. So in summary, yes, stand up for yourself, but always be ready for an experience. Always look on the bright side. I kind of agree with him, but all I'd say there is, a lot of the time in Thailand, it isn't worth getting into serious altercations with the Thais. They kind of gang up. It's a kind of pack mentality, and sometimes you can have a legitimate reason for arguing with somebody, but what happens, the person you're arguing with always raises their voice, a Thai this is, and of course it attracts people in a kind of, you find yourself trapped in a kind of circle, and before you know it, somebody swings a punch and you're in the middle of it, and you end up rolling around and you're off to Bangkok hospital. So whereas he's saying about stick up for yourself, I would say to a point, but in a lot of cases it's just better to walk away, take the loss and just walk away. You're in their country, you're not going to win, and it's up to you how you handle it at the end of the day, but that's how I've handled it, and I've never really come unstuck over the years. Right, let's finish off with the final story. This is a very, very short story. I wasn't going to read it out. I don't reject many stories, but often I'll reject very short stories. Guys send them in. I say, look, you just can't get into this. It's too short. This is short, but I've decided to read it out because it's quite interesting, and it's not as short as all of them. So let me just read it out. My name is Roy. I have been enjoying your channel for some time now, and since you mentioned that you don't mind stories from Southeast Asian countries, I have decided to share my short experience in Vietnam. When I visited Saigon, in brackets, I prefer this name more than its newer name, in 2018, I saw a pretty Vietnamese ladyboy on a dating app. I decided to try to meet with her, and she/he agreed. I knew there would be a transaction, and he asked for some money as compensation for a taxi ride that he would have to take to arrive at my place. The sum quoted was worth 10 taxi rides, but I decided to bargain a little bit and was able to lower the price by a third. While I was waiting for him, I made sure to hide all my valuables I had in the safe, money, credit cards and passport. I also hid my iPad and everything that could be a little bit valuable, like chargers, etc. When he arrived, we had a little chat, and he asked if he could charge his iPhone, so I had to produce a charger for my iPad. After knowing each other better, he had to leave, and I fulfilled my part of the transaction. Around 10 minutes after he left, I decided to charge my iPad and watch YouTube. But the charger and lighting cable was nowhere to be found, and I realised that my recent guest had taken them with him. I messaged him on the dating app asking if he had my charger, and he immediately replied that he did indeed have it. When I asked him to return it, he told me he was already far from my location and he would need a taxi to reach it, although the app showed him being several hundred meters away only. I asked him how much it would take him to arrive, and he quoted a sum that, if added to what I have already gave him, would be more than his original sum before we bargained. I had to agree because the original Apple charger and cable would cost me much more. After I agreed to pay, we decided to meet downstairs, and there he was in just a few minutes, and he returned my stuff after I paid for his non-existent taxi. So this was my rather fun experience with a ladyboy in Saigon. Everyone, keep your money and documents safe, and don't let strangers take hold of your stuff if you don't want to lose it. Yeah, fair enough. What I liked about that story, he said after we, when he wanted to say, after we'd done the deed sort of thing, but he was very, very polite, and he said after we'd gotten to know each other. I thought that was quite nice. Okay, guys, as I said at the beginning, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. Pre-recorded. I could be in Bangkok right now as you're listening to this. I could be in Hua Hin, Chatham, Isan. Who knows? You'll find out when I get back. But for today, guys, I can't even advertise the usual streams at 9 o'clock on a Friday because they might be on a Sunday, depending on the time difference between here, where I am, when you're listening to it. It's getting quite complicated now, isn't it? Anyway, guys, there will be more stories next Saturday. Hopefully, I'll have time to prepare a load more. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.